So over the years I've bought and sold quite a few Leatherman knives, and this is what I have remaining. Some I've had for a long time, some I've recently purchased. So just like to touch on what I like about each one of these, and it might give you some insight on which knife you would like to buy. So Leatherman's very popular in North America, but not so popular in Europe. Unfortunately, because of the locking blade in each of these knives, they would be deemed illegal in the UK and I think parts of Europe as well. So that's why you really don't see them in Europe. You tend to see Swiss Army knife and Victorinox in Europe because they have that non-locking blade, so you can carry it legally. Like I say, it's a real shame because I think these are fine tools. So I've only really owned these types of knives for the last, I don't know, 13, 14 years. One of the first things I did when I got to North America was go out and buy myself a Leatherman. So I'm going to go through each knife in turn and tell you the strong points of each one and the cons, and see if you can guess which one's my favorite. So we're going to start off with the cheapest knife, and this is the Leatherman T4. This varies separately from all the other knives that I have in that it doesn't have some sort of pliers or anything like that. This is just really a knife with a few other tools, and I'll kind of briefly go through them with you. This one has 12 tools in total, and I'll put up a graphic so you can see all the tools without me having to lift every one out, but I'll show you some of the differentiators. This one has a nice pocket clip that you can keep it securely in your pocket, and the main reason I bought this particular knife was because of the scissors. They're actually very, very good, and I use that quite a bit. Each tool is lockable, so you can simply unlock. The knife is nice. It's a fair size, and I've actually used it for quite a few things when I'm out camping. A nice pocket knife is good for food prep, etc. And again, locking blade. Does have a file, a sharpened kind of screwdriver, almost like a chisel edge, and obviously has small screwdriver and a Phillips type screwdriver as well. And a really nice thing is these little tweezers, which I've used more than once. But it's a really nice knife, and yeah, it's a really good choice. So the next knife that I've got in my set is the Leatherman Rebar. This is what I would call one of the entry-level type of Leathermans if you want the pliers. The price for this currently is around $107 Canadian, and it has most of the features of the bigger knives. It has obviously the pliers, which are really useful. The reason I selected this particular one is it has the replaceable cutters for the wire cutters, which some of the other ones don't. I think to have that, if you're ever going to use this seriously, you need to have the replaceable cutters, because on the other ones where they're not, they can get deformed and it won't cut wire anymore. Another couple of features on this: it has 17 tools in total. Has a serrated knife, which is great for cutting rope, etc. And it has a plain knife as well. All the tools lock, which is really nice. And one thing that's kind of overlooked is it has a scale. So this is really handy if you need to measure something roughly for whatever reason, just to quickly reference off this. So that's really nice. And the other thing I use this for is the screwdriver, nice and big and flat. Has an awl, which is nice, a smaller screwdriver. And on the other side has a file as well in here. Again, I'm not going to go through every tool, so it would be boring, but I'll put up a list. But it has a tin opener, so that's really useful if you bring canned food, which is pretty cheap if you want to buy camping food that's not $20 a bag. Just buy canned stuff if you're not worried about the weight, but make sure you bring a tin opener. And the other favorite of this knife is it does have a wood saw. So excellent knife if you're just looking to spend a smaller amount of money and get yourself a Leatherman with the pliers. So the next Leatherman on my list is the Leatherman Crunch. It's $160 Canadian, and it has 15 tools. So this is a bit unusual even for kind of Leatherman. And the only one I've ever had buyer's remorse regarding. So it has a set of these vice jaw pliers, which in theory work really well. The idea is excellent. So to have something like this is very, very good, especially if you're on a, put in the Jeep or any type of automotive approach. You can use this to clamp off maybe a brake hose or hold something together. So the theory behind it's really good, but this is what happens. So I'll just demonstrate that again. So when it's in the plier configuration, once you pop it open, sometimes it just pops and you see this doesn't hold. So the whole thing kind of falls apart again. So that's one of the major failings. What they should have done is put a pin in the hinge here to stop that popping out every time. And I would use it all the time. As it is, I don't really use this much anymore. It does have some nice features where it's got a wire stripper. Some of the other tools has a serrated knife for cutting rope, etc. Phillips screwdriver, large flat screwdriver. That's also a file. And there's a few other oddities with this, where if you take out, let's see if I can do it real quick. If you take out the adjuster for the pliers there, it does give you a 1/4 inch bit driver, which is kind of handy, or box wrench. You could use it to tighten up screws too. So that's kind of a nice feature to have. So I really wanted to like the Leatherman Crunch because of the locking pliers, because it's a great idea. And once they're actually locked on, they're very, very solid. But unfortunately, once you undo them and the whole thing springs apart, then not so good. So it doesn't get really used that much. Again, it has a nice scale on the side, which I think is a really good added touch. But that's the Leatherman Crunch. So the last knife I have is the Leatherman Signal. This is the most expensive knife that I have. This is about $190 Canadian and has 19 tools. And it's unusual for a Leatherman because it has some features that I've never seen on other Leatherman knives. And it's geared more towards the outdoors person. And I'll show you some of those features right now. So there are a couple of unique things with this knife. One of them is it has a nice clip, so you can use it in a pocket safely. Has a ferrocerium rod for starting a fire, which is really nice and handy. Also has a diamond sharpener on this side, so you can slide this out and sharpen your knife. Again, it's pretty unique. That slides back on. And the other unique thing is you can access the knife and the saw without opening the tool. So accessible from the outside. Like so. Again, the lock-in. And this is a liner lock. So you depress, fold back in. The other thing that they have is this kind of clip here and this edge. Now this is meant to be a striking plate or striking edge, and this is used to hit tent pegs in or whatever. Yeah, not 100% sure about that. It's kind of nice, I guess, if you want to just tap something lightly, but I wouldn't be wailing on this pretty hard. And you really don't have enough leverage even in the hand to kind of strike comfortably, and if you miss, that tent peg is going straight in your hand. So not 100% sure they thought that one through very well, but that's how it goes sometimes. It does have a 1/4 inch hex driver as well, so you can put a tool in there and turn it. So opening up the tool, we have obviously the Leatherman pliers. It does have the replaceable jaws, so the wire cutters can be replaced if they get worn. And inside we have some interesting things. So under this little clip here, I could push it out. is a safety whistle. So very interesting, but believe me, a whistle in the woods has saved many a life. Let's try it out. Yeah, worked on my dogs anyway. And then to replace it, we just pop that side in, clip down. So that is a really good idea. I like that for safety. Having a whistle, if you're lost in the woods, is much better than screaming and shouting. It conserves a lot of energy, and I always carry a whistle anyway. But with this tool, I could have fire lighting abilities. I've got sharpening facilities and some way to summon assistance if needed with the whistle. So it is actually geared to the outdoors. On the other side, we have a few other important things. So we have an awl. Pull this out. A tin opener. So obviously that wouldn't be complete as a survival tool without the tin opener. And this one has the replaceable bits as well, which I really like. So you can buy different bit sets to go into your knife, and you can do stuff whichever you need. And you can buy extra bits of different shapes to fulfill whatever you have in mind. But having the replaceable bits is excellent. This is the only knife I have that has that feature, but I think it really should be standard on all Leathermans. So the two big items on this knife that are really useful is I can use the saw to break down some wood if I want to make a small fire. You'd be surprised what you can cut through with a small saw like that, just to score the wood, and it makes it much easier to snap if it's dry. So it actually saves a lot of effort. And obviously a reasonable sized knife that you can use. I think the only big misstep with this knife, and one of the reasons I really considered not purchasing this knife, is the serrations. That's it. What they should have done is they should have put a separate blade in, a serrated blade, not just a half and half. The reason being, if you're working with a knife like this to do any type of woodwork, so you want to make some nice curls in order to make a fire, for instance, because this is what it's kind of focused around, is like outdoor camping, survival type of approach, is this part of the knife is the one you use mostly for shaving wood or carving, for instance. You don't carve at the tip typically on a piece of wood. You're going to carve up here where you've got the most control and power, and they put the serrations right here. So this limits what the knife can do with woodworking tasks. Great if you want to cut some paracord or some other type of rope or fabric, whatever. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, it kind of detracts from what I would use it for. So if I could change this blade out to just a straight plain blade, I would be much happier indeed. So is this knife worth $190 Canadian? Well, that's for you to decide. I keep this in my motorcycle as my survival piece of gear. I've got the ability to make a fire because I have the ferrocerium rod. I've got something to sharpen, and obviously I've got that whistle to make sound. But again, if I'm trapped with a motorcycle with gas in the tank, obviously, and spark from the battery, I can probably make a fire. But if I have to leave the motorcycle in the bush and have to hike, I'm going to be taking this. And this is going to be a good tool. I know I'm going to have at least the bare essentials if I become into a survival situation. So this is a pretty good tool to have, an all-in-one. So yeah, I kind of like it. Like I say, apart from that knife, this would be almost perfect. So did you guess which one is my favorite? Well, it's the 3T4. For less than $100, this is a very quality knife and will last a lifetime. I like that it has the clip, and it covers about 95% of all the needs that I have every day. So it has the main knife, which I use for more or less everything. It has a couple of screwdrivers, again, for just tightening things up, which are excellent. And of course the scissors, which strangely I use more often than I would imagine. But that's the reason I bought this. To have a nice pair of scissors just to kind of cut through packages or cut a piece of paper or string or whatever. Very, very useful. And the addition of the tweezers is a real bonus because I always tend to get splinters. So there we have it. That's my 4 Leatherman knives that I currently have. Let me know in the comments what you think about each of the knives, or if you have a specific favourite. And until next time, take care. And as always, thank you very much for watching. If you like my videos, leave me a comment, maybe a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.